Your Eminence and Reverend Fathers, I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you.
This is Jonathan Pageau. Welcome to the Symbolic World.
This is Grim playing third monkey on your two-man conversation.
So we live in a time of monsters. In our more frightening moments, we get the feeling that the horrific cycle of the 20th century is on our horizon again. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned.
What are we doing? It is the Angel Vocation. Live stream? Maybe. Start recording.
The ceremony of innocence is drowned.
This adult probably sees things I cannot yet see. This adult probably knows things that I do not yet know.
So, in case you did not know, these two sons of bitches trolled the fuck out of me with
Imitate.
John Pageau's release of Collective Intelligence Angels. Collective Intelligence Angel in scientific terms with John Vvk. And I must do some advocation for the angels as a result of witnessing of what goes on in this cluster hootenanny. Meanwhile, remember, Embody, we want what's best for you. There is no agency. General Griswold Gaius Grimm of the First LARP Ingression Protocol. And we're here to flip the script on this apocalypse.
Because that will allow me to transcend my own perspective. It's very hard to transcend your perspective from within your perspective.
The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity.
I think that's part of what reverence is. Reverence is that, first of all, not how things are relevant to me, how am I relevant to them? And that does that relevance carry with it a sense of responsibility? I think that's what reverence properly is.
At the edge of the world, where the wheel is spinning so fast, it feels as if it's going to come off its axis.
Hey, everybody. There's somebody here, it says. How about that? Vixen Dixon, hello! R. Shane Jenkins. Nathan lulls, you're throwing signs, man. You're throwing signs, tribe signaling. There is no agency. Remember, Embody, we want what's best for you. This is Angel Advocation, my official response to the Collective Intelligence Angels, in scientific terms, with John Vvk, released by our good friend, the Apostle of Purpose, talking to the Apostle of Wisdom. Or, I don't know if he's the Apostle of Wisdom or the Apostle of Plato. Have his people get back to me on that. Right after their hot, fresh, don't you know it, the Apocalypse of Meaning, which today, you know, I made that great 7-minute piece, right? So I was going to pick up and start slicer dicing the rest of that beast. And I decided I needed to practice my previously on ons. So I made one for, oh yeah, by the way, Quantum Entangled Ambient Backscatter. That's for the advanced class, the one that likes physics and stuff. Quantum Entangled Ambient Backscatter. Okay? Oh yes, Maudib. That's a good one too. Here it is now. Here's the version without it, and here's the fancy retweets.
That logo is called The Meaning of Music. I'd like you to riff on that.
Is we're doing it all right now, and we're doing it like this. Feel it, and you're evolving in this dynamically coupled fashion. Celebrate it. My agency is opening up. Inexhaustible fount. That's the experience of sacredness.
What consciousness is. And nested in, why would I bother trying to make the world a better place? And it's an image, and it grips us. It's the thing we imitate. We're in that whether we like it or not. And then that was the experience of God, if you want to put it that way.
I do.
Celebrate the highest good.
Let me as a celebration.
As this hierarchy of the good. Of these revelations, which is the one that binds the most reality together into itself, defeated, and that's the end. Cosmic revelation.
So that was like the fancy 1 minute distillation of the 7 minute distillation. I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as I did. I had to cut out the Canadian Jesuit part, though. That was every time I watch the 7 minute version is just for that bit. Remember, everybody, there is no agency. We want what's best for you. You guys make me nervous when I know you're watching. It's like so weird. So weird. Oh, yeah, here I have my fallback 2 morphs.
We can both stand in a church where Christ in the dome is the origin of the heavenly hierarchy of beings. And we also know that we can find Hezikiah in our heart, in our center, as a gateway to the divine, and as the manager of the passions whirling in the widening gyre.
And here's the joint attention and the looping. What do you do in metacognition? Oh, you rise above your cognition and you look at it. There's no space there. So what we're doing is we're imaginally augmenting our ability. And that's what internalization is. I and you, we got a capacity to become metacognitive, aware of ourselves and transcend ourselves.
Imagine I and you and I become cognitively, transjectively aware of ourselves and transcended into something cooler. Have you smoked the brand of cigars that famous London Baptist preacher Charles Haddon Spurgeon smoked? How would I know what the brand of cigars famous London Baptist preacher? I don't know there is such thing as famous London Baptist preachers.
I can internalize you better the more I can indwell you. The more I can see things from your perspective, the more I can, right? So I want to indwell you as deeply as possible, and that allows me to internalize you, and vice versa, hopefully, too. Hopefully it's not one way and consumatory.
Sorry, guys. Is it echoey and also indwelling you consumatorially? Consumatorially. Ooh, doggy. Save me 2 morphs. Speaking of saves, that was one of the main problems with the last live stream is I forgot to give everyone their saving throws for the mind control, so I couldn't leave it up. So before I influence you unduly any further with you spending your time and attention pointed in this direction, there's going to be a savings throw rolled versus the mind control that follows. You have 4 options, and then that's how you know which one is yours. You can roll based on surviving, on socializing, on wisdom, or on heart. Okay, so one of those, make a choice. Here it comes. Okay, survivalists, 6. Socialists, 6. Sophists, 5. Heart, 9. I know, I was so expecting the third 6 too.
And similarly, Adam, as he moves out from the center into history, Adam and Eve are given garments of skin, an outer layer of animality, an outer layer of death to protect them from death. And if our mind is struggling to get a sense of what that means, it's very difficult to understand. We were given protection of death, a layer of death to protect us from death. I always think of a vaccine. It's probably the best image for that.
Now, some people might say that there is evidence of that way back in whenever that was given, he was already pushing. But I just let's get on to the advocating for the angels, right? Thanks for being here, guys.
Interesting things were said. So John and I thought it would be a good idea to kind of dive back into the things that we talked about and explore them even more. So John, thanks for coming.
This is Jonathan Pageau. Welcome to the Symbolic World.
This is Grim Grizz playing third monkey on your two-man conversation.
It was my idea, by the way, to include you. You were very much a ghostly presence in the conversation I had with Jordan, and I felt it was unfair ultimately to not allow you to actually be present and be involved. So that's why I suggested it to Jordan.
And it's interesting because with adding Bishop Barron, the conversation definitely morphed into something completely different.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's not involved in this kind of inner, the way that we've been talking about religion, let's say for the past several years, you and I and Jordan in our different ways, but kind of coming towards similar.
Way to snub the rest of the amateur light web, buddy boy, and only talk about the famous reputable people. I don't know if anyone is aware. I know there's fancy tools that would let me like highlight that specific chat message. Pageau from Nathan Lulz. Nathan Lulz is a funny fella, but like I don't have those tools. I don't know what that shovel looks like to dig the gold deadwood out of. Dust to dust. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Approach. All of this is kind of coming towards something. Like there's something else going on here. There's another type of discussion.
Now, I'm stopping to draw your attention to the fact that John was so moved by that whenever one of these fellas says the key phrase, the most interesting thing, right?
For me, that was one of the most interesting things, was to watch the discussion move toward the direction where all of a sudden I could see in Bishop Barron's eyes that he was like, oh, this is like, there's something else going on.
Like anything there, and like the reason the Mice and Men Paglia thing worked so well and it was so important is because that's how she opened it. What's interesting to me, and when smart people get together and share what's interesting, that's gold for us. Okay, reap.
On here, there's another type of discussion.
Yeah, he just wrote a blog about he was very clearly.
What would you do if I sang words to you while I typed in Bishop Barron's blog? This is blog the Catholic Family News. That's the guy. There's his Catholicism. How do I find your talk on the hootenanny? Anyway, that's probably it, guys. I don't know. It's there somewhere. Continue.
Appreciative in all three senses of the word of the discussion, and so I think your observation is accurate.
And so I think that this is, to me, it was exciting because I think that the discussion we're having, and bringing it back to the human experience
In the world of the fall, the layers of society, of technology, those are the flip side, and in a way, they're of the same nature as our weakness and the passions which come from the world of death. St. Gregory of Nyssa tells us that the hairs on our body are a symbol of death.
Right? That's scaling up in terms of personalities into kind of figures of personal attention that are communal, right? That can be something like a god or like an angel or like a Athena or Aries.
Very much, right? If we have a hyper objects of persons, like people gathered into hyper objects like Athens.
You have 100,000 people, 100,000 people under you that can act as your body to act out in the world. And I mean, we see the results of that.
Yeah, the internet's kind of like Tolkien's The One Ring, right? It's just this magnifier, right? In some fashion, and it can magnify.
Those that appeared before the flood with a sign of confusion and mixture, wrapped in inappropriate sexual desire. The origin of technology and magic, and they were known to create hybrids.
Nodes of attention, because it's just, there's no one controlling it.
Yes,
but it still seems to have a will and seems to be going towards a telos, and everybody sees it and nobody can stop it. And everybody says, well, at least I'm going to get what I can get as I watch this god kind of move towards its sacrifice or whatever's going on. But everybody's like, well, at least I can get something out of it while it's happening.
I think that's a very apropos way of thinking of it. I often use Thomas Merton's idea of a hyperobject.
No, not a truce.
A merger.
Yes. A merger.
Like champagne and potato chips. A brand new lemon-scented you.
I do not think we are exercising proper care around this.
That's for sure. Nobody gets too big. It is like, when we talk about, this is, when I look at the internet and I look at social media, it's the closest thing I have to understanding a kind of, how can I say this, a God acting in the world, in the sense that like a pagan deity that is embodied in ritual and in practice and in, nodes of attention.
Ultimately, everything is all systems, interlaced. A single product manufactured by a single company for a single global market. Spicy, medium, or chunky. They get a choice, of course. Of course! But they are buying salsa.
Attention seems to have two parts to it. One, which is a concentration, focus, right? Prioritization, but another part, which is like a cutting off, right? A circumcision, a cutting off of you have to be able to kind of chop off the things that are pushing in or are trying to take over, let's say. And then, so it's like a double movement, one of focusing and then one of pushing away. I don't know if that's something that is consonant with.
I'll need a little bit of space, but what I mean by that is I think the prioritization function. So what I mean is give up the old model of there's input and then there's processing and then there's output. The newer model is there's a sensory motor loop. As I'm moving, I'm sensing. As I'm sensing, I'm moving. And there really isn't anything, there isn't a homunculus willpower out there. Instead, there's something more like character. There are sets of constraints on this. And then attention also directs us. And so think of decision as exactly what you're saying. Attention is both ruling in and ruling out.
Yeah.
Right. It's what's ruled in and what's ruled out.
Consciousness is like a napkin ring, okay? Your right brain side and your left brain side runs through it like the napkin, and you're spinning in it like this forward motion he's talking about. That's the spin of the conscious ring, the napkin ring consciousness. And you attenuate it like Spider-Man by like shooting the constraints he's talking about, like webs that you spin it this way by shooting a web onto it. And the strength of the web is the emotional valence of the attention you shoot the constraint with. That's what I think, guys.
Notice how when kids are at the one-word stage, they supplement it with pointing. They use joint attention to make meaning clear. So again, it's more dynamic and it's more shared and joint. It's funny. You'll like this. There's a line in the Psalms that is sort of resonating with me as I get into this, which there's a line where it says,
Grim Grizz has a patron, Grim Grizz has a patron, Grim Grizz has a patron. Anyway, here was a timestamp where I in this discussion of the collective intelligence angels, they had an endorsement. My good friend Vvk endorsed me in my patron. Watch this link here. All of these links can be found in the comments, by the way, up to this point. Not these comments, on the video.
The model that's emerging, Wall and Wu, what's actually happening in attention is prioritization.
Yeah.
That the function of attention is to prioritize. That means, I think quite correctly, like you said, good attention is proper prioritization. Good attention is proper prioritization, that you're prioritizing the things that should be given priority.
John, that's a very good point. And that's why, hey there, Sigma Dialectic. Good afternoon to you as well. Welcome to the live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Yeah. There's this, okay, good. I'm glad you said that, Solomon. I'm just going to call you Solomon, Stefan. Deal with it. I'm glad you brought that up because, you see, So as Solomon says over here, he's not the only one that watched American Gods, and I think maybe this is something I am seeing that the amateur light web does not see as well, and that's what I call the principle of you know this one, at Tanagra. It's at Tanagra. That's because I have to chunk things in really weird ways to hold on to them. But that's the episode of the Star Trek where Picard talks to the reptilian and they work things out. But the reptilian guy only thinks in terms of historical events. And if you don't know their history, they're fucked. But they learn to communicate in Shaka when the walls fell. And that's so what used to hold people together was religions, yes. And then the TV, the altar of Set was put in every home. And so eventually it became like the three main networks had hordes of zombies. And they farmed the housewives with the soap operas and it's so complicated. But the important thing is fandoms have come to, because we don't have time for ancient religions anymore, right? So we're hopping on the fandoms to keep us connected with each other as we're going through this flood of information. It's like, hey, let's go surf with all the people who like Star Wars. Oh, let's go surf with all the people who like Star Trek. And so by using the memetics of those tribes to communicate cross-tribally, you can I don't know exactly what you can do because you guys aren't doing it yet. And not enough people are seeing that it can be done. So there's a Dharmak at Tanagra thing. And it involves speaking to fandom tribes. Can you translate Jesus into Akira? I don't even know what these words mean. Somebody popped in the Discord some really valuable add-on for this information. It's in the tavern, dude. Oh yeah. The town square is where everybody does their own self-promotion. I heard that. That Discord is great you got. Yeah, it's the Broken Clock Tower Discord. People love it. It's fabulous.
Generation Z humor. What? Celebrities and songs and even meme templates are hated just because they're mainstream. How can any humor exist at all? Any joke or style that's been around is now considered completely invalid by Gen Z, so they're forced to constantly adapt to a new idea of what is considered funny. Take a look at this picture. This was for a brief time considered the embodiment of Gen Z humor. But why? What is the significance of the statement, "Me and the boys at 2 a.m. looking for beans"? What even is this image? Well, this is considered funny for a few reasons. For starters, it takes a phrase used frequently, "me and the boys," and then subverts the direction of the joke that you would, as the reader, suspect.
Hey everybody, that gave me a little clips, ophrenia.
And so I think our capacity for genuine reverence makes us qualitatively important to disclosing the possibilities of something like the world soul. I don't typically use that word, but I'm using it because you introduced it, Michael. Sometimes this actually happens to me. I really love cats now. I used to think of them as land sharks with brains, but now, right?
What is the truth? And what are you laughing at?
Looking for beans. Beans existed for a brief time as the universal funny word. In the early 2000s, the funny word was potato, and so the use of the word and the food itself in images inherently added an air of randomness to catch the reader off guard and evoke a sense of humor. The image itself, being frightening, adds a sense of edginess, while the poor quality, in fact it's completely unrelated to the caption, creates a sense of rebellion to the standards of modern humor. Which brings us to our next topic.
Not only does it just say sad, but Petkau just asked in the chat if I saw a thing, and I have not. Well, I'll give you a wrench if you drop me a link. How's that?
I don't wanna die, but I don't wanna live like this.
I just wanna feel something! I just wanna feel something!
Gen Z also has some of the highest mental health issues.
This is the part that our community I thought should really pay attention to. So let me take it back and say it again.
Don't wanna live like this.
I just want to feel something. I just want to feel something.
Gen Z also has some of the highest mental health issues of any generation. They're plagued with things like depression, social anxiety, and thanks to growing up with access to endless information, existential dread. So how does this relate to humor? Well, these problems and fears are all
She says the truth is, she's gonna stick her boot up your Nazi kitty.
Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that Chris Petkau had his first wrench immediately removed because when I pasted it, something went wrong. Studio. Whoa.
So let me ask you about this. So now all of a sudden, the network, everyone's a TV station.
It only works well when the actual orientation is love.
The very processes that make us intelligently adaptive also make us vulnerable to self-deceptive, self-destructive behavior. Care, capacity to be agents, being a self-organizing, self-correcting, self-optimizing. Care, capacity to be agents, self-developing, evolving process. Care to create the conditions of meaning making. Care to create the conditions of meaning making. What we're actually engaging in, is agape.
Each of us has an angel.
Agape is to love for its own sake, the process. Because my valuing of it does not constitute it into existence. I emerge from it. And your situational awareness, the states of consciousness you get access to, ultimately depend on your character.
Well, that's a lot to swallow.
Oh God, look guys, I'm moved right now. I'm so moved. I'm so moved that I am liking it, pressing the share button, and then also Twitter. And then I'm going above what it pastes and typing in moved through the LARPGATE. Tweet.
When we're doing that, what we're actually engaging in is agape.
It's love.
You see. Hey guys. Chris, that's amazing. I was moved. Moved enough to share, you saw. And I demonstrated how to share. I mean, I should give you an honorary position on the official Shadow Cabal production executive. But like you're like a co-creator, so it's a different thing. I don't know. But that's amazing, sir. That was sauce. That was definitely sauce. Who is Lovejoy? Remember, Embody, we don't know who Lovejoy is. This is the Angel Advocation LARPGATE stream. There's usually a Bris edition where I cut out the nonsense, and then I'm also working toward making a kinsurgi. How do we say? I closed that word. It's a word, but it means you infuse it with gold. And so like the notion is I make a lame live stream where I kind of try and say my things and then go back and use reference clips to actually say things. These guys were trolling me hard, and I showed you all the good bits I left in their comments, but the hard trolling comes down here. So first of all, they come out hard at fasting, so I have to respond to that. So here's them doing that while I sesh chat over here.
Right, but there's also what you might call the historical dimension. So attention is not only organizing up down, it's organizing past present. So your previous history of what you're paying attention to has an impact on what will jump out for you as salient right now. But there's also good evidence for what's called inhibition on return. We also want to move away from what we're paying a lot of attention to. And so these two things are playing each other out. And I think if you push the attentional pendulum, if you'll allow me that metaphor, too far one way and starve people, there's going to be a rebound the other way. People are going to hunger for, like you said, something that can be co-realized through joint attention.
That if you're not careful, asceticism can actually lead to excesses back in, like the idea of a diet, right? The idea of people dieting, where they try to just like not pay attention to the thing, and then all of a sudden it just cracks, and here comes
exactly. The thing is to try to get the virtue, the golden mean of ascesis, right, of discipline, of spiritual exercises. And
ascesis in the traditional sense is always a redirecting of attention. Right?
Yes, I ascesis people all the time, right? That's part of what I do. I don't want that one. Here's some more of this. How about here?
There's a tradition from Armenia which portrays a monster in the door of Pentecost. The monster is either a dog-headed man, a cynocephalus, or else it is truly an unnameable monster, a kind of chaotic being with a dog face growing behind its head. I mean, I guess you can imagine.
Okay. We've officially reached the off the rails, or maybe we're on the rails now. I don't know. There's been a rail change in the live stream, and we're now at that point. So if you've loved it up to now, it might be different. If you've hated it up till now, it might be better. Welcome. Vixen, Dixon, Chris Petkau, Sigma Dialectic, Lance Cleaver, all came by. Dust to Dust as well. Nathan Lulls. John Abney even stopped by to ask me about Charles Haddon Spurgeon, which is creepily like if I had staff, they would totally research this John Abney comment earlier. Reverend Jenkins, good to see you. Okay, I have a bunch of links open. Here, you can listen to this. I'm going to close some, though, so your visuals are going to be weird.
I began to understand the image of Pentecost. I realized to what extent this is a testimony to the totality of what Christianity is meant to be. The true possibility of God being all in all.
Take, for example, the popular subreddit called 2MeIRL 4MeIRL. Nearly every post is about depression, suicide, loneliness, or social anxiety. And so even for the members of the generation not experiencing these problems, their humor is equally influenced by it merely due to the exposure caused by the memes being in circulation. However, some would argue that the millennial generation started the trend of depressed humor, but...
Hold on, we have an interject from the hive mind. The illustrious Vixen Dixon explained that Lovejoy is a character Ian McShane played in a long-running TV series on the BBC. And I explained that Ian McShane and me started our relationship in Deadwood, but I did also spend time with him in the Game of Thrones, and then questioned whereupon which there was a wrench given. It's more hanging out than following, Vixen. But the reason wherewith you got the wrench went something like this. I saw you in the chat earlier, and I was like, hey, that's that one that always gets first on the PVK. That's worthy of recognition and reverence. And so you were wrenched because of how often you were the first commenter on Paul Vanderklay. That is why you have a wrench in the YouTube live stream.
Whether Generation Z adopted it or not, jokes about mental illness are still incredibly present throughout Gen Z humor, if not somewhat more subtle.
I'm currently back in my favorite place, the porta potty that I was at last week.
You say peacock and no one bats an eye. But you say poopcock and everyone loses their minds.
Since
with the world, immediate coping with the world, immediate coping with the world, the way we are evolving the sensory motor loop, right, so that we deal with the problems at hand. Actively coordinate with all these other people and they with me, the generalized other. So you can think of Athena as Athena is not just this.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But she is a generalized other of Athens that people could internalize to become an Athenian.
This generation is between the ages of 25 and 0. Most of the humor is meant for its own age group. Gen Z has an inherent drive to be counter to the popular culture.
There's this one cat, and he's an amazing. What must the universe be like such that it can produce a cat? Sings to everything we've been doing here.
Offer you an opportunity to participate in the Alien Salience Project.
Love.
Let me commentary, so it's fair use and shit, right? Okay, well, the reason I'm playing this clip for my audience... Where am I? There I am. Okay. What, the thing down, flip it and reverse it? Sure, yet. The reason I'm running this clip for my audience, ladies and gentlemen, is because it's from The Boys, in which, like, the big evil corporation wants to inject everyone, and so they have superpowers by altering their DNA via injection. And this lady Stormfront was a Nazi who said all the right power buzzwords of the left and had, like, all of their attention channeled into her. The way that these guys are talking about attention culminating into personhood of Athena.
Communicating and directing and becoming like a node for even the more abstract telos that you have.
Yes.
And so this is I guess this is my big question in terms of the manner in which reality exists, which is that I've been positing, like I've been really working towards positing that reality has, even though I agree with you that you could say that the infinite is transpersonal, but that as this infinite manifests itself in the world, then it tends to take it tends to culminate into personal beings. And so my question is always for you is always to think, like, the idea of transpersonal, not transpersonal in the sense of beyond humans, but I mean transpersonal in the sense of beyond humans, but personal beings that are not human, let's say. The idea of angels and the idea of bodhisattvas, or the idea of gods, little g gods, as being the manner in which reality presents itself to us and the manner in which we encounter it, let's say.
Well, and Paul Pentecost has made us.
Okay. My advocation is that we want what's best for you. And there is no agency. And my big takeaway from the four horsemen of meaning, this beauty right here. Look at. They even have the right guy's face on the thumbnail now.
When I tell you, we didn't study that.
Is that for children experiencing shit like this, they're dealing with like this sadness and wanting to die thing, and they can come and find out that, like, even a bishop and like all these really old intellectual people have no idea what the fuck gives life meaning. And that's encouraging to them, I think. So why don't we focus more on the telos of our species, and then let meaning arrange itself into that? Because the telos of our species has been lopped off. No one's trying to build the city of God anymore. They're trying to either like go Amish or hide in VR. So, like the inverted Babel. What? Good times. I don't know. I think there are angels, and I think that we should all get together and do the movements from the OA, because season 3 is us. Welcome. Steps to the LARPGATE. Stay tuned.